I'm Don Mooers, and welcome to Montgomery Week in Review. As Memorial Day approaches, we think about programs that help our veterans in our community, such as Serving Together, part of the Mental Health Association of Montgomery County. Ernie Spycher, a veteran himself, is a peer navigator for the program. He's here to tell us all about how it works to help ease local veterans and their families transition into our community.
Thank you for having
Fred Evans is here as well. Board of Education Montgomery County is considering new curriculum for sex ed in our public schools. A topic like this always stirs controversy. Fred's here, often comments on education programs, and he's here to tell us about how all the parties are proceeding ahead with this topic. Legislation to address domestic violence in Maryland has had a long history of failure in Annapolis, but this year there was success. Dorothy Lennig, one of the individuals who helped push for that success from the House of Ruth, she's legislative director of the clinic, is here to tell us about the history and how it finally got across the finish line. This year, the libraries are up and running with innovative programs as they are every summer. Ari Brooks, executive director of the Friends of the Library, is here back with us to one of our favorite stories each year, and that's what's happening for the summertime in our libraries and how Friends of the Library is helping make these programs successful. Ernie, sorry to cut you off before, but we had to get through the rest of the intros.
I'm sorry. I'm just so excited to be here.
Well, everybody wants to see you pretty much only, but we got to give some previews. And people will stick around and keep watching the program.
I know it.
Serving Together.
Yes.
And, I think of Memorial Day
Absolutely.
coming up. My grandparents are at Arlington. Get over there, try to make it around the Rolling Thunder folks. Very difficult sometimes on
Absolutely.
these days. Serving Together, what does it mean to you with Memorial Day coming up and the needs of our veterans in our community?
Absolutely. Thank you for having me. With Serving Together, what we do is we work with our military veterans and their families to help them receive the benefits and resources that they need for everyday living, and the resources and benefits that they've earned through their sacrifice of service.
Sure.
As we come up on Memorial Day, we remember those that have come before us that are no longer with us.
Sure.
And so we celebrate their lives. But we also have to remember that as we focus on Memorial Day, we still have veterans here today who need our help.
Well, and a growing number as well.
Absolutely.
We've had two wars, plus we have the aging baby boomers, still have a number of World War II veterans, but so
Yes.
many of these Vietnam era and these Korean era and veterans. How are you dealing with these various levels? But or is it mostly with the Iraqi and Afghanistan veterans who you all are dealing with?
Absolutely. Well, as an Iraq vet myself, I feel as if I can relate to all of the different eras, and that's who we work with. Right now, I've been working a lot with, unfortunately, the spouses of World War II vets.
Hold on with the spouse of World War II vets. You've got a website that
Yes.
People can look at while we're talking here.
ServingTogetherProject.org.
Okay.
And on there you'll find a list of the Memorial Day celebrations in the area.
Okay. All right. I'm sorry.
Okay.
The spouses?
And the spouses are calling because they need assistance with burials. We're losing so many World War II vets, every day.
I was involved in that process with my father, who was a World War II vet. And
Absolutely.
served as he was a prisoner of war and lived to 89 years of age. And we were prepared to bury him at Arlington, but they opened up the National Cemetery of the Alleghenies in western Pennsylvania, which is where he was originally from, and that's where he is buried.
Absolutely. Great.
It's fantastic.
And what are the challenges that you find with widows? I mean, they're in their 80s, 90s
Right,
themselves.
exactly. One of the largest things is just having that form, that DD-214, your discharge papers.
Right.
It proves that you are a veteran.
And there were fires through the years.
Exactly.
I mean,
there were
St.
fires
Louis.
in St. Louis and different things over the
My father-in-law
years.
is in a veterans home in Delaware, and that was the hardest thing, was finding that form.
It is finding that
Yeah.
form. But
Luckily, my husband was able to find it because
Wow.
we got very held up at the end getting
Absolutely.
him in there.
Absolutely. And so what we do is we work with the Veterans Affairs, with the VA. We also work with the National Archives,
Right.
has some of them. And so we try to get those discharge papers to the proper
Sure.
proper channels so that they can be buried within the federal or state cemeteries.
All right, we're making progress on the mental health and on addressing mental health needs of our veterans, especially the most recent veterans.
Absolutely, it's getting better. However, there is still such a large stigma attached to phrases like PTSD, depression, and anxiety. And veterans of all eras go through different stages of this when they return from combat.
No question.
Some of them deal with it right away. Some of them it takes 40 years before everything
Something cracks.
comes
So
out.
are you providing counseling or
We-
therapy or
we
group
don't
support?
provide
What's
it
the-
directly.
Okay.
What we do is we refer them to different agencies in the area. One of them that we really enjoy working with, and I can attest because that's where I go personally, is to the Vet Center in Silver Spring.
Okay.
And they are part of the VA system. However, they are completely separate, and they are for those of us who served in combat. They're also for men and women who were sexually assaulted while they were
Sure.
serving their country.
Where's
Traumatic.
that located?
It's located in Silver Spring,
Okay.
and they do have a website off of a link off of va.gov.
How do you get the older veterans who never thought they would need therapy to realize that they're having mental health issues?
We've got about 30 seconds on that.
Okay. One of the best ways is to have them talk with other veterans that have found the help. Veterans listen to veterans. Their personal experiences, they trust their intuitions, and that's one of the best ways that I know.
It's that veneer, the crack, that strength and suddenly realizing. Ernie, keep up your good work. I
Thank
look
you.
forward to having you and your colleagues back.
Absolutely.
Future shows. Thank you. Fred, another kind of battle.
That's right.
A battle of how do we educate our children about their bodies and especially on the topic of sex. What are the changes that are proposed by the school system?
Well, they're not monumental changes, but there's always a revision in how we teach about life situations, and sex education is one of them. Just as a way of a review, we'll just be talking about the middle school and high school 6 through 12 program that's going to be looked at by the school board.
Okay.
A committee was put together to look at potential revisions to the program. Right now, a 6th grader, 7th grader, 8th grader, they have a 9-week course, a 9-week section of health education as part of physical education.
Okay.
So that's the 6, 7, 8 program. That's not going to change. The content is going to change.
Well, tell us about it. I mean, we've had so much. I don't know if it's related to same sex or it's related to
The
more
most controversial piece in the past 10 years, I guess, but it's always been controversial. But more controversial has been how do we talk about homosexuality and how do we present that to students in middle school as compared to high school. And one of the major proposals for that next year are starting. I believe it starts in 2/15, but I may be wrong. We can get that checked out. Is that it be moved to the 7th grade?
Okay.
That topic was in 8th grade, the 8th grade curriculum. Now they're moving it down to the 7th grade. And one of the major reasons was based on research, that they found that students who identified themselves as being gay, as being lesbian, bisexual, they're 8 out of 10 of them have indicated that they are bullied, that they are picked on one way or another. So the thought was let's get that education process in there. Sex education, part of the health education, is multifaceted. It's just not about, quote, sex. It's about growth patterns, eating patterns, a whole variety of ways in which you take care of
Do you
yourself.
have a piece on healthy dating
Oh yeah,
and
that's
domestic violence?
You know,
and
that's
all
a
that?
that's a big part of the, especially all from the 6th through the 12th grade. So that healthy relationships. How do you indicate, or how do you determine whether it's not healthy? Who can you turn to? As a former high school and middle school principal, I tried to make sure that kids always had someone that they could turn to, and not because they weren't comfortable talking about it in a classroom. So guidance counselors, teachers, and so on.
When we talk about the politics a little bit, real quick, or coming out the community, do we have pockets within the community who object to this kind of direct approach, thinking that this is going to? I mean, I used to hear that this is going to advance people to want to do this more if they hear about it in sex ed.
Yes, to answer your question, it is controversial. I don't think it's as controversial now as it was. For instance, in 2005, a judge ordered stopping the teaching of homosexuality because it wasn't broad enough and it didn't give opinions about it's a sin or whatever. And that has pretty much been removed from the curriculum now, where it's looked upon as that is who you are. And I think our society is moving in that direction. So. Okay. But there is controversy.
Can parents opt out for their kids?
Yes, they can. Thank you for bringing that up. In all this discussion, parents have the right to opt out their children, and they will get other instruction during that time. That's always been pretty much a part of the process. And
Are kids on the committee to review the curriculum? When I was in high school, I actually sat on a committee to review.
I believe they are, and that's a very good
the curriculum.
That's a very good question. I believe they are. In fact, I'm about 95% sure they were. I didn't look at that closely enough, but I believe they are. And the other thing I would like to see, I have two daughters that just recently went through that process, is I'd like to see the school system evaluated through the kids' eyes. In terms of whether it's effective, whether it's helpful, because I think there's some mixed reviews on that, and it's a tricky topic.
What about through the eyes of a former principal? We've got about 25 seconds left. What do you think?
I think we need to do it. I think the key to having it done effectively is to have the most effective teachers teaching it. But also to inform your parents and your community about what is being taught, and allow them time to ask questions about what it's all about, because the issue, especially of homosexuality, is still a hot button issue.
Sure.
And one that we have to be well versed in dealing with and handling.
Well, I look forward to hearing more about this and continuing our discussions about education in Montgomery County, Fred.
Thank you.
We'll be right back after these messages. Dorothy Lennig, welcome.
Thank you.
House of Ruth, clinic director. What an important role you play in helping women in need in this community.
Thank you.
Tell us a little bit about House of Ruth.
The House of Ruth is a comprehensive domestic violence program. Many of our services are in Baltimore City, but in Montgomery County we have lawyers in both courthouses, the Circuit Court here in Rockville and the District Court in Silver Spring, and we have a counseling program at the Family Justice Center.
Okay. Now, House of Ruth, what's the name House of Ruth? Where does that come from?
Ruth is a biblical reference to the Old Testament. It was a mother-in-law, daughter-in-law, and the son, husband was killed, and I guess women didn't have a lot of rights then, and by bonding together, they were able to survive. So there are actually a lot of domestic violence programs that use the name Ruth.
Now, we can learn more about House of Ruth on the website. What's that website?
www.hruth.org.
Okay. Now, let's segue into this, what has been a ridiculous debate in the General Assembly of Maryland, where year after year efforts to help women be protected against domestic violence have fallen by the wayside in as I remember, the House of Delegates, the Judiciary Committee.
Right.
This year it didn't happen. This year you finally broke through.
We did.
Lay out what happened and what was going on and and what broke through?
So the big debate has, for a long time, has been whether we should lower the standard of proof in a protective order.
A protective order is what?
A protective order it's a civil proceeding. It allows somebody who's been a victim of abuse to get some protections from the court.
So try to get a zone of exclusion of that abuser.
So it potentially could have the abuser removed from the home.
Okay.
It might give her custody of the children. It might give her some money. It might order him to stay away from her work,
Okay.
things like that.
Okay.
And so up until we changed the law, in order to prove that the abuse occurred, the victim had to prove by what they call clear and convincing evidence. In most civil cases, the standard of proof is preponderance of the evidence.
If I remember back to my evidence, it was you have beyond a reasonable doubt
Right.
that's criminal.
Right.
Preponderance is more likely than not, and clear and convincing is somewhere halfway
in
between there.
So preponderance of the evidence still means it has to be by 51%, and you still have to
Okay.
be able to prove it. But in a lot of domestic violence cases, there is no other evidence. There are no other witnesses. Often it's a he said, she said.
Right.
And so the judge is listening to it, listening to the testimony, the demeanor, and the judge may believe it by 51%, but under the law really couldn't issue the protective order unless they got to that higher standard. And we felt that there were victims of domestic violence who weren't being protected because of it.
And is it true Maryland was the last state to?
We were the last state. 49 states and the District of Columbia had changed the law.
Goodness.
The world did not fall apart.
Right.
And now we've kind of come into, I don't know, the 1990s maybe?
So did these wonderful folks in Annapolis just get shamed? I mean, how did they change?
Some very important people decided to take this up. For one thing, the governor and the lieutenant governor put this into their legislative package, and that always means a tremendous amount, because when they start advocating for bills, that really moves things. And then Senator Brian Frosch, who's also running for Attorney General, also came in supporting it. So we had some very powerful people who were standing with us this year, and that does make a difference.
And then what brought it across? Because I would imagine Frosch and these others, governors, I can't imagine governors have been pro domestic violence in the past. What was it this year that made this happen? Because it's been since, almost 20 years at this point.
I always say we started talking about, we didn't put the bill in, but we started talking about it. I was on maternity leave and my child is going to college in the fall. So we've been talking about it for a long time. We've put it in a number of times and it has not passed. I think this year the biggest thing that pushed it over was the fact that 49 states had it, and there was just no reason not to. I think the community pressure became too strong.
Was it somebody in Annapolis told me once, when Mississippi is looked upon as being more progressive
Right.
than Maryland, it's time that we ought to take a look at that law.
There was just kind of no argument this year, and having everybody together on it helped.
Good.
What's your role at the House of Ruth, and what role did you play in helping to get this passed?
I'm the director of the
Move
legal
along.
clinic.
We have about 25 seconds.
We have 18, I think, attorneys on our staff, and I'm the registered lobbyist for the House of Ruth. So I've been very actively involved in all the domestic violence legislation that we've put through for the last 20 years.
Congratulations.
Thank you. It feels really great.
Now, one last yes or no, are we making progress in reducing domestic violence?
I think we are making progress in people becoming aware of domestic violence, and I think the numbers haven't dropped because more people now are aware that the situation they're in is domestic violence.
Dorothy, thank you so much for being here.
Thank you.
Hope you come back.
Thank you.
Ari, welcome back.
Thank you.
Summer fun ahead of us at our libraries.
Yes.
Tell us about what's going on.
Well, for a second, I'll skip to the fall, if you don't mind.
Well, let's proceed ahead to the fall.
Yes.
Yes.
So one of the things that Friends of the Library in Montgomery County is doing this year is forging new partnerships, working with other like organizations. And so we've started recently working with the F. Scott Fitzgerald Festival that has a huge annual festival to celebrate the birth of F. Scott Fitzgerald. And the theme this year is war and literature. And so
Okay.
I wanted to bring that to everyone's attention because
When is that?
the Friends of the Library actually is kicking off the festival on October 16th
Okay.
at a literary luncheon, which is held at Strathmore Hall, which is another one of our partners.
Uh-huh.
And at that luncheon, we will feature authors, one of whom is Grady Smith, who wrote a book called Blood Chit. And so we will be launching the F. Scott Fitzgerald Festival, but most of the activities are scheduled to be held in Rockville Town Center. There will be lots of workshops for veterans. It's my understanding that most, if not all of those workshops and activities will be free to veterans.
That's excellent.
And so
Thank
that's
you.
something that I think that the community should be aware
F.
of.
Scott
And it's-
Fitzgerald, his grave right at the intersection of Veers Mill and
Rockville
355.
Pike, yes.
That's right.
So one of our most prominent literary figures here in this county. So that's really exciting for us to work with that group. And so now back to the summer. So this June, for the very first time, Friends of the Library will actually hold our very first live auction.
And people can call and
people
get more
can call
information.
at
What's that number?
240-777-0020.
Okay.
So as you know very well, because I'm sure you're a frequent shopper, we operate 2 used bookstores. Our Gaithersburg store closed back in April, but we still have a presence in Rockville and in the Wheaton Library. And so we get books donated. Sometimes people literally give them to us and say, this is going to have some value. And sometimes we just dig and find these rare and collectible items. And so we have about 100 lots or 100 items for sale, mostly books and sometimes prints and other very unique things. For example, we have a first edition Steinbeck of Mice and Men, and we have a autographed copy of autographed book by Andy Warhol.
Okay.
So, and again, all of the proceeds help benefit Montgomery County Public Library, so we can help them to be innovative and
Right.
remain relevant in our county.
Do you think there'll ever be a day when we don't have books?
Never. I mean, there'll be
Where
books forever, even if
everything's
it's
online. Do you
No.
think that'll ever happen?
No, because there was just recently an article in the Post about how your CDs are actually dying. I mean, all of the
Interesting.
things that you think are
Forever.
indestructible are not.
Right.
Right.
Or the
And so,
technology
the tech-
advances and they're obsolete.
Exactly, and
Right.
the instrument that plays the CD doesn't exist anymore. So no, there will
Right.
always.
I
yeah.
still have a tape player, so.
Summertime fun for kids and
Yes.
making libraries come alive. Tell me about what's going on.
So one of the longest running programs that Friends of the Library has funded here in Montgomery County is the Summer Reading Program. And that's birth through teenage.
Okay.
And there's something at every single branch throughout the summer. There's reading lists, there are activities and programs. A lot of branches will have makerspace programs now that are following along this STEM curriculum. That
STEM is science, technology, engineering, mathematics,
Right,
for
with-
those who are in the know.
Exactly,
Very
or
good.
STEAM, when you add the A for arts. Didn't mean to trip you up there.
No, Congress forgets about the arts most of the time. and
Oh,
there's
okay.
Much
Another
of the STEM
discussion.
comes from there. I'm sorry, keep going.
Gotcha. At any rate, it kicks off in June,
Okay.
and there's lots of rewards and incentives for kids to be involved. And my daughters have been involved since they were born, and
Okay.
you can even read to little ones,
Same here.
and they can still participate in the program. And it helps during those critical summer months when kids are losing the skills that they gained all school year long. And it's just a fabulous program. And they actually get, in years past, they've had their the kids who've completed the program have
Right.
had their names printed in the Gazette, and so it's exciting.
When
for
do they,
all
when do
of
they
us.
sign up for that?
It starts in June, and I apologize that I don't know the exact date. There's a
Soon.
kickoff.
Kickoff
It's
soon.
it's very soon. School will end, and then summer reading will kick off. Yes.
It's amazing. Okay.
I was just going to ask, then, for the programs, are there meetings where the kids come together to discuss the books or read together?
You got 15
Yes.
seconds.
Well,
on
there's
that.
all kinds of programs. I mean, there's everything from book clubs for kids to the Maryland Science Center comes and does programs. They'll bring animals, and there's programs on astrology. I mean, there's astronomy, so there's all different kinds of programs. Just check out the library's website.
Check out the library's
I will.
website.
Thank
That's
you.
the last word. I want to thank you for joining me today. I want to thank all of you and the viewing audience for joining us for this week's edition of Montgomery Week in Review. I'm Don Mooers. Please join us next week at this very same time.